Hey guys, welcome back to Snark Bait. Today we are diving into the fascinating world of Danielle Bernstein of at We Were What fame. Christy, are you excited?
Oh my God, I'm so excited. She has so much lore. She's a much requested episode, so I'm excited to dive in.
Yay, me too. Let's dive in. Okay, Christy, how was I guess you didn't have a long weekend because you had to work today. We're recording on Monday, February 17th. Um, I guess how was your weekend and Monday?
It's so funny because we just recorded Dark Energy Tuesday the day before. So it's truly been only 24 hours since I've spoken with you and
Yeah.
Jordan, our producer. But it's been such a crazy day. And honestly, I know I say this a lot, but this podcast is such a reprieve from the craziness that is my normal corporate job. And I know that you feel the same way. And I feel like there's no better person to break up the workday than Danielle Bernstein because we have so much stuff to cover. And I feel like you
Yep.
are a historian on her lore.
Yep. Yep. And you know what? I'm with you. Just again, we say this all the time, you guys. Life is stressful, but Snarkbait brings us so much joy. I actually was like in one of those moods. By the way, Christy has a glass of wine. So she's a little loosey goosey. I have coffee, even though it's 7:30 p.m., almost 8 o'clock on a Monday night. I was just in one of those like really, really, really sleepy moods. I think it was because I took this like weird type of edible last night that always makes me drowsy. I need to stop taking them because they always
Which
make me
one?
so tired.
Which
They're
one?
called chill pills.
Okay.
And this dispensary, we go to this dispensary in the city, obviously. It's legal here, you guys. It's legal. Don't be a narc. Um, and they're like in pill form. I always joke that they're like the
Mm.
Dippin' Dots of like Henry's like, this is
Yes.
the future of like marijuana consumption. Like they're like in pill form. I'm like Dippin' Dots, you know? Um, but anyway, they make me so drowsy. I was so tired all day. So I'm waking myself up with coffee, but I'm really excited. I feel like this is like one of the most requested episodes that we get. And I feel like there's a lot of lore. I felt a little overwhelmed by it because there's just so much when it comes to this rabbit hole. But Olivia, our amazing researcher, really helped put it into a very concise outline. So I think
Yes.
we should be able to like get through it in one episode. Again, I feel like if we say that sometimes we might need a two-parter. So potentially I think that we can keep it to one episode somehow. So yeah, Christy, what are your just initial thoughts when you think of Danielle Bernstein word association? What are your thoughts?
I think if I could do a quick wordplay or word association on Danielle Bernstein, copycat would be the number one thing that comes about
Uh-huh.
because I feel like she is one of the OG influencers who really was able to migrate from website blogging to
Hmm.
traditional photography in the Tumblr era to a full-fledged influencer lifestyle clothing brand. And I think if we juxtapose her against people like Ariel Charnas or Gal Meets Glam, I forgot her name, Julia
Julia
something.
Burrs, I can never say her last name, but you
Yeah,
guys know. If you know, you know.
Cupcakes and Cashmere is another person that comes to
Yeah.
mind. Emily Schumann is the founder and CEO of Cupcakes and Cashmere. I feel, Danielle Bernstein has kind of transcended these other creators in her space. I feel like when you think about the OG bloggers, it's the people I just mentioned, plus like the Skinny Confidential, right? And I feel like it's really difficult for a lot of bloggers back in the early 2010s to kind of be able to migrate with the times. Not everyone can really
Hmm.
ascend beyond it. And I think fortunately for Danielle Bernstein and unfortunately for us, she's ascended above it. But she
Yeah.
has so much lore tied to her name that, again, she's fascinating to me because I'm
Hmm.
always curious, kind of like what we talk about with Alex Cooper and Call Her Daddy. Who are the people that follow her and are fans of her? Because I'm very hard pressed to find that. But how about you?
They exist. It's crazy. Like, I feel like, and I know that some of her followers probably are fake. I think she was one of those like early adopters of buying Instagram followers and seeing the value in having a platform on Instagram. But she does have genuine fans, which is wild to me. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you said, copycat, that's something that she's known for is stealing designs. But overall, like she is extremely successful. Like she is one of those OG influencers who really, really, really has succeeded in not only the influencing space, but also creating her own brand. And I mean, love her or hate her. And you'll be able to tell we are not Danielle Bernstein fans over here at Snarkbait. But we can recognize that she has really, excelled in her career and in the influencing space and, creating a product for her followers, even though a lot of her products are carbon copies of other products that exist. And we will
Other
get into
products,
that.
other products that exist that come from very, very tiny, micro, small creators, which is the
Yes.
biggest divisive thing about her brand.
Yes. So we will definitely get into that. I guess let's like dive in. So Danielle Bernstein, commonly known as We Were What, or Olivia, our researcher, kept referring to her as Miss What, um,
No.
which always
Is that
crack.
is
It
that something
keeps.
that Olivia came up with herself, or is that a slang I'm
No,
unaware of?
I've never heard anyone call Danielle Bernstein Miss What except Olivia, and I'm obsessed with it. It's so funny.
That's so funny.
Um, but yeah, let's give credit where it's due. Olivia, thank you. Thank you for coining Miss What. So Danielle Bernstein is an American fashion influencer, entrepreneur, quote unquote designer, best known for her blog and then brand, We Were What. And again, like we said, she was kind of one of those early adopters of using Instagram as a platform. Um, and eventually built her multi-million dollar business because of Instagram. So yeah, again, like she was one of those early on bloggers, like you said, she's in that category with Ariel Charnas of Something Navy, Emily Schumann of Cupcakes and Cashmere, etc.
Really
Um,
quickly, Sophie, were you an avid reader of these types of blogs? Because I can speak for myself
mhm.
that, like, I would say in 2013, 2014, it was like around the time I graduated college.
2012.
2012 was like when they kind of
Yes.
started to come up. And it wasn't like Tumblr, because I know a lot of people are Tumblr readers. I wasn't a Tumblr reader. These are people that had their own website, like
Yes.
theskinnyconfidential.com. And I remember waking up before work and like doing my hair. And I lived in San Diego at the time. And I remember following religiously Lauren Everett of The Skinny Confidential. And she's now built a huge brand empire there. Her and her husband are the founders of Dear Media, which is a huge podcast network. And I feel like people were really it was like the early beginnings of like what Instagram now is or what TikTok now is. People would log on and actually go on their desktop and read the website. So were you kind of like a reader of those websites as well? And if so,
Yes.
who?
I feel like we've talked about this before, but yeah, I remember like vividly in like 2012. I was obsessed with Rumi Neely of it was called Fashion Toast. And she also founded the brand Are You Am I or Are You Ami? I don't know. I don't really keep up with her anymore. Um I was obsessed with her. Also Leandra Medine, Man Repeller. She also was just really good at like writing. And as someone that like wanted to be a writer at that time, I was in college. I was obsessed with like just reading her blog posts. Those are the two that I really remember. And it was back when we like went to websites. Like now I feel like we like don't go to websites. We just like open
No.
social media.
No, I mean, like when we talk about a BRB on our away message, it's like we live here on our phone. And if you guys don't already know, we're on video now. You guys can find us on Spotify video, on YouTube video. So watch the video as you're listening, or you can continue to say audio only. But just a quick plug for our video, who Jordan and Jenna have
Yep.
really collaborated on that to make that happen. But yeah,
We're
to your
in
point,
your phone. We live here.
we live here now and we're no longer BRBing. So that's really interesting that I feel like people that are on Reddit, like you and I, or people that are all super online, we were the early readers of these websites.
Yeah, and I think like speaking of Reddit, like I feel like Blog Snark was that original like Snark subreddit. And a lot of the OG influencers, that is who Blog Snark talks about the most like Gal Meets Glam,
Mhm.
Julia Burrs. I can never say her name, I'm sorry. Um, and kind of those OGs. And Blog Snark, I think, was that OG subreddit for snarking. And now, of course, you have like NYC influencer snark and LA influencer snark, but Blog Snark was the OG.
Did you read? Gomi back in the day. Do you know what
Yes,
that is?
duh. And Gomi is insane, you guys. I feel like we need a Gomi episode. Like Gomi is insane. The woman behind Gomi, I her name is escaping me right now, and I feel like I don't even need to know it because she is so off her rocker. I don't even want to give her airtime, but yeah, she is nuts.
That was the OG Snark subreddit, and I don't even know how I had found out about Gomi. Like I couldn't even tell
But it
you, but
was
like
so toxic. There weren't
it,
rules, at least with like Snark subreddits, like at least, and you guys, like, I'm not defending Snark subreddits because I know they get extremely toxic. And as much as we discuss them or reference them, we are the first to say that Snark subreddits are extremely, extremely toxic. There's body shaming. They're especially the ones that are dedicated solely to one person
yeah.
can get really toxic. But for the most part, they have rules.
Yes.
Like there are rules, there are like moderators. Like Gomi was like the wild, wild west, and it became the most toxic cesspool. Like, ugh,
I remember being obsessed with reading it with Emily Schumann of Cupcakes and Cashmere, who
yes.
definitely deserved her own episode. But yeah, it's Gomi was like the dark interwebs that was Reddit before Reddit became a thing.
Oh my
Quick,
God, I cannot remember Gomi's name, but I think that's for the best. Like
yeah.
it starts with an A.
I didn't even realize it was a
It
person.
yeah, it's a person. It doesn't matter, you guys, because we're not even gonna give her airtime. She is, like I said, off her rocker. Okay, anyway. Danielle Bernstein. So she is kind of that Long Island Jewish girl that like I am very familiar with as a New Yorker and as a Jewish girl. Um, grew up, like I said, Long Island, Great Neck, New York, pretty privileged background. Um, a child of divorce. She's currently 32. Which is actually my age also. So, just a little fun fact. So she, again, a lot of her upbringing is actually just broken down in her memoir that she wrote when she was only 27 years old, which I always think is so fascinating. And her book is called This Is Not a Fashion Story. We will get into that. But just so you know, a lot of these facts are actually like pulled from her book. Um, so yeah, she was always obsessed with fashion. She decided to go to University of Wisconsin-Madison
Hmm.
and was between like that and NYU and was like, I watched Greek and I decided that I wanted that, Big 10 school experience, which relatable, Big 10 school girl over here. Um, Ended up realizing that people at Wisconsin are not fashion girls like she is. Didn't get her, didn't understand her outfit. So she ended up transferring to FIT after her freshman year at Wisconsin. And this is around the time that she started her blog, We Were What. And she was initially documenting like street style. So she was documenting other people's outfits and eventually turned it into a blog about her outfits. And this is really funny. This is from her book. So she decided to call it We Wore What. She says, we, because we, the girls of New York City, wore because it's what we wore that day. What? Because I would detail every aspect of their ensembles, which is so funny. It's like, okay, you're explaining like literally just like the exact literal words. Like like, yeah,
The women of New York City, like, yeah, no,
yeah.
duh.
Yeah, like we as in like a pronoun. Yeah, we know. Um so we were what? I remember I always got it confused with Who What Wear, which is a digital fashion publication that existed before We Were What. So did she copy even the name of her blog? It probably. Um so she has her blog and then she started to really dedicate her time to Instagram, which at the time was this new burgeoning app. And she realized that there was a lot of opportunity there, which again, credit where it's due. Like, I fucking wish I could go back in time and be like, Instagram will be a really valuable tool for a lot of people. I should probably, focus on Instagram. But no, I was just posting pictures of like fruit salad with a Valencia filter.
Can we quickly talk about the culture that was Instagram in the 2012s? Because I remember
I miss
if you
it.
just go back through your feed to like the first row of your Instagram, it is so crazy. Like I deactivated my personal Instagram for now, so I can't even look. But I'd imagine it would have like a bunch of food and like pixelated, yeah, Valencia filters, and just that was such an easy time of the internet. It
Yes,
was your time of the internet.
there was no pressure. It was just like it was so chill.
It was like
It's
a
funny
photo
because
album for
I
your friends.
I have never been that person that like gets anxiety posting on Instagram for some reason. You guys, I have so many wedding photos to post still. I have my Friday night photos to post. I really loved my Friday night outfit of my
The
wedding,
silver.
silver dress.
Wait, can we
I
quickly talk about your wait really fast? Sorry to interrupt. Someone was like, Christy and Sophie aren't even good friends because Christy wasn't at her wedding. It's like, to be
wait,
clear,
who said that?
I saw
This
it
is
on
the
Reddit or
first
something.
this is the first time I'm hearing this. What?
No, it was on Reddit. And I was like, let me just dispel the rumors really quickly. Sophie and I have never met IRL. And before we started Snarkbait, we were literally merely Instagram.
Podcast and like podcast friends. Like I had been on Christy's podcast like a bunch of times.
Yeah, but like we weren't like tight, I would say. We were just
Oh my God,
friends.
that's so
Like,
funny.
clearly they have no chemistry because she wasn't at her wedding. I'm like, shut the
Wait,
fuck
did
up.
someone say that we don't have chemistry? Like that in the context of you weren't at my wedding, so there's no way we have chemistry?
Yeah, I'm like, that's kind of rude. But don't worry. I mean,
What?
for every one comment that says that, there's hundreds of others that tell
I
us that we
do
have.
think that, yeah, we get complimented on our chemistry the most.
Yes, I
So,
would say that's the one
but also, like, if I were to
overarching.
have my wedding now, we were talking about it, we're like, Team Snarkbait would all be there. Like, it sucks that Team Snarkbait, we didn't start this podcast earlier because literally every one of you guys would be at my wedding and all of you baby snarks listening to. But anyway, my point is that I have these epic photos that I want to post. And for some reason, every time I open the Instagram app to post them, I'm just like, I don't want to right now. Like, I'm not in the mood for like a stomach ache. Like, it just like keeps giving me anxiety.
I'm not in
Um,
the mood for a stomach ache.
you know what I mean, though?
Yes, it's
So,
pressure.
so Danielle was smart and she realized that, Instagram had a lot of potential and her Instagram starts blowing up more than her blog. And she starts skipping a lot of her classes at FIT because of it and eventually drops out. Um, And she says in her book that she, was one of the first bloggers to consciously cultivate her Instagram following and prioritize that over her blog's readership, which again was kind of a smart pivot because who goes to blogs anymore? Like the pivot to Instagram was the smart thing to do at the time. Um, and it's also like worth noting that she was able to drop out of school and pursue this, burgeoning blogger career only because she had the financial safety net of her parents. Like she like approached her dad and she was like, "Hey, I want to do this. I know that it's crazy to drop out of school to pursue this, but I really think it's worth pursuing and I would need your financial support." And so she convinced her dad to financially support her while she did this, and he said yes. So this is not something that like the average person would be able to do.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people can have a lot of most people that are on their Instagrams that are watching these influencers live these very privileged, glamorous lives. I always say, you can't help the family that you were born into, like whether you came from a wealthy family or a poor family. But I think it's like very important to acknowledge that people that
Yeah.
attain success so quickly, and I'm not saying that we were what is not a hard worker. She clearly has done very well and she has to be a hard worker to get where she has gone. But I think it's really important for us to recognize like the average person doesn't have the financial stability or safety net to just drop out of school to pursue their passion. I think what I've read about Tinks is that she has come from like a pretty wealthy family and she was able to attain like a pretty high powered publicist to get her name out there. Not to say Tinks isn't a hard worker. I'm just saying that it's like a really important thing that I think we fail to acknowledge like, oh my God, why can't I be that famous so quickly? Or why can't I get my name in publications as fast as they did? Why didn't my blog take off or my Instagram? It's like, well, maybe you just didn't have the same financial means
Yep.
to get yourself out there to begin with. So again, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
these people are not hardworking, but we have to acknowledge that there is privilege that comes with these very famous influencers.
Totally. And I know that we talk about this a lot, how like growing up, we were like, I'm going to be Andy Anderson. Like I am going to be the editor of Runway.
Yes.
Like what was Jennifer Garner in 13 going on 30? I can't remember her character's name.
Jenna Rank.
Jenna Rank. So those were like our idols as millennial women. And growing up is realizing that the magazine print industry is obviously a sinking ship, which is sad, but also that the people who have those jobs come from extremely, incredibly privileged backgrounds because the pay has always been so low. And even like I interned at one of those back, not from even having connections. I like applied on like an internship board and ended up getting it. But the fact that I could like take an internship in New York City at that time and make pennies doing it was like a privilege that I was able to do that a lot of people don't have that opportunity. Um, so that's just important to remember and point out. And I agree that it's frustrating. It's like no one is blaming you for maximizing your opportunities or coming from
No.
privilege. It's about like not acknowledging it. Um, so I think that Danielle Bernstein is like a perfect example of that. Like her
Yeah.
career trajectory is so just unrealistic for 99% of the world.
And I think the same could be said about like Ballerina Farm as well, Daniel Nealman. Like you guys have created this empire, this farm, but you guys fail to actually acknowledge or tell the
Yeah.
public that Daniel
Yes.
comes from the founder of JetBlue. So, you know,
Yes. Yeah,
we're not
exactly.
hating, we're not hating on these people to be rich. I mean, fuck, if I had the choice, I too would take that path in life. But we have to acknowledge that it
I,
contributes largely to their success.
I'm hating from outside the club.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, whatever. I like keep saying that to myself. I'm like, ew, oh my God, why is so and so wearing this outfit to the SNL 50th anniversary red carpet? And I'm like, you are hating from outside the club. Like, I keep reminding myself, I'm like, why are you
You know what that,
like,
but you're self-aware enough. That's what the difference is. There's people that would hate and don't have self-awareness, which I'm going to go on my quick soapbox really quick because I actually do want to call this out. I was complaining to the Pod Collective today about how exhausting it can be to be someone who's online. And a lot of people would say, well, you guys have a podcast about Reddit Snark. You're very correct. We do. And we do acknowledge that
correct?
we critique, and it's from a sociological perspective, it's from a psychological perspective. I think we critique people in a way that is fair and not mean. I stand by that. However, what I will say is the difference between us critiquing Reddit is that people on Reddit don't have faces to their names. We are here with our faces
Hmm.
discussing these people. At least we have the balls to like speak on it with our faces. Like I think that really is inherently the difference. And I'm not shitting on anyone, like people that are on Reddit or whatever. It's fine. It's fun. It's kitschy. It's our version of a magazine. But that truly is the difference between just being a Reddit snarker and being mean versus actually attaching your face to the criticism.
And that's why I feel like anything that we say on this podcast or just like in general on our Instagram page, wherever it is, like I attach my name to this. Like I am not ashamed of what we say. And I think that we are very fair with like our criticism and we're not just
Yeah.
being like, miserable trolls. Like I think that we're actually here to have conversations about these people that influence us.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, like how did we get there?
I
Where
don't
did that
know.
segue come from?
Privilege to attaching our
Yeah,
faces to snark. Like
yeah, I
it's just
don't
a
know.
conjecture, but I did want to speak on that because I think it has been brought to my attention and I wanted to speak on it directly.
And I think that we've also had this conversation where it's like a podcast like this could so veer into, oh my God, you're just hating on successful women. You're so miserable, like blah, blah, blah. You're just bitches or cunts or whatever. And I have said to Christy that that is not what I want our podcast to be. Our podcast is about having like and yeah, of course we're going to be like, snarky. It's in the name. We're going to be snarky and bitchy and make fun of them sometimes, but for the most part we want to have conversations about these people that influence us.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, anywho, um So again, Danielle was one of the first people to kind of like have that successful Instagram business. She did affiliate marketing, brand collaborations, fashion launches, even collaborations. Um, She also, do you remember when she was, or I mean, if you're not familiar with Danielle Bernstein lore, you might not even know what I'm talking about. She was friends with Eleanor Calder, who was Louis Tomlinson's ex-girlfriend. So she had some sort of friendship with her, and that also brought her, because as we know, the One Direction stans have always been, crazy.
Yes.
I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. They're just very intense.
They're impassioned.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so like obviously, just being attached or associated with anyone in that circle would bring you more attention. So I think that that was also, something that got a lot of eyeballs on her page and her business. I did not know that she had a collaboration before she started her overalls line. She had um a shoe line, a Chelsea boot line that was called
Oh,
Archive with her friend Seth. And it was a made to order company to sell boots. The first drop sold out in a week. The second drop of shoes was very low quality. And this has become kind of a criticism of everything she puts out is just low quality fast fashion crap. Customers said the shoes started falling apart, and she blames Seth, the business partner, for everything. She then shut down Archive. She claims she was never paid and didn't profit off it at all. So I didn't even know that happened. I don't know where I was during this whole saga, but I think I was following her since like 2014. So that was 2016. I do remember when she launched Second Skin overalls. Do
yes.
you remember these overalls? Because I wanted them
Yes.
really badly.
Yeah. I can't say that I was like dying to purchase it, but I do remember these overalls. Yes.
Yeah, they were chic in my opinion. At the time, like for 2016, they were very like 2016 core, like really fitted like bell bottom, like denim
Denim.
jumpsuits.
Yes.
And at age 24, she is recognized on Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2017 for her impact on the fashion industry. She said she made seven figures the year prior from sponsored content and her clothing collaborations. And in 2017 is when she launched her swimwear collab with Onya, which is what really I feel like her first big foray into designing. I mean, there was her overalls brand, but I feel like Onya is where it really blew up for her. In designing is doing a lot of work in the sentence, quote unquote. Uh, and the collections were extremely successful. The first collection allegedly sold $400,000 worth of merch in the first 24 hours, the second 1 million, and the third 2 million. And she also is extremely influential as an influencer. Brands like were paying her a lot of money to post about their brands because she just had influence over her followers. She's paid up to at this time $20,000 for a single post. It's estimated she generated 20 million for brands that partner with her over 2019 through 2020.
You know what's really interesting as you're saying this? When I think about brand campaigns and brands partnering with an influencer to hawk their product to do a paid sponsorship, I don't know if because the influencing space has just grown so much, even since 2019 and the last 6 years. Would you say that brands are paying more or less for a person of her following to post about them? Because I feel like that's a shit ton in 2019.
Yeah,
$20,000 for a single post. Like, I don't know. I know nothing about metrics, but to me, that just seems like a shit ton of money for a single post. It just shows you, I guess, it exemplifies the influence that she had and the impact that she had on her followers. They knew that
yeah,
they would get a huge ROI if they invested $20,000 on a single post. Like, she was that girl, whether you like her or hate her, she was there to
totally,
stay.
totally. I think that it's less about your number of followers now and more about your engagement rate. Like brands are partnering with smaller influencers, micro
Yes.
influencers now that have just a really, really, really engaged community versus, you could have 10 million followers, but if you get only like 5,000 likes a post, that's not a very engaged community.
I think of
Um,
lames.
Lames.
Lames. He has like almost 1 million followers and his engagement
He's
rate's
bought,
like
oh my God, I can't believe he's jumped up that much. Like he has bought so many followers. His followers jump up like
every day.
by, he doesn't even try to make it subtle.
No, it's like every day there's another 2,000. It's like, oh. But I
Yeah.
think of people like Lames, it's you and you can easily track engagement rate. There's websites for that. So yeah, that's a really good distinction because I feel like nowadays
Yeah.
micro influencers are becoming even more influential than those with 1 million
Yes.
followers.
Yes. And also, I think it's important to note too that, okay, I'm sorry. I just lost my train of thought. I'm like, it's important to note. And then I immediately lose my train of thought. Oh, that influencers just like are not going anywhere. Like the platforms might change, but it is like just the most inexpensive way to put together an advertisement
Yes.
because previously brands were, putting together an entire campaign with models and a photo shoot and a billboard or
Set
whatever it is,
design, yeah.
a TV commercial, set design, all of these people. And now it's like, let's just pay one content creator. They're going to create the content. They have this audience who they are going to plaster this content out to. And it's just more cost effective for brands. It
Mhm.
is. So I understand why it exists. Like, unfortunately, again, whether we like it or not, I feel like we keep saying that. It's like love it or hate her. It's like whether we like it or not, it's just like it's a thing. Um, so in 2020 is when she starts officially her We Were What fashion line. This is following the success of the Onya line. It includes swimwear, denim, activewear. Now all she does is like push out more and more collections, like and that's like just such a huge criticism of her is that like she is constantly, it's like this drop, and it's like you just had a drop 2 weeks ago.
It's like
Like it's
capsule
just,
collections infinitely.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's just like so wasteful. It's all just like low quality from what I've heard. Um, and she also launches a brand exclusively at Macy's in 2020 called Danielle Bernstein. And this is a more size inclusive line. And I also obviously want to get into her like photoshopping.
Oh my God. The
Speaking of size
most
inclusivity, because that is,
egregious.
yeah, because that is a huge part of her story and her criticisms. Um, in May 2020, she publishes her book. This is not a fashion story. It was a New York Times bestseller, but it had a dagger symbol. It had a dagger symbol on the New York Times bestseller list, which, if you know what that means, you know that it included suspicious bulk purchases. And I think this was also maybe the case for some of her clothing launches, like her Macy's line. It sold out in like 1 hour or whatever it was. And people suspected that she was bulk
Buying
buying
him.
it to make it appear to be more of a success.
I do
Um,
believe that most authors of memoirs or whatever, Stassi Schroeder was famously kind of flagged as having a dagger by one of her, I think it was her first memoir, the Basic Bitch one, that blue cover. And I think it's
yeah.
really common for these influencers. It's almost become like normal for an influencer to push out a memoir and have it be a New York Times bestseller. And I'm always
Yeah.
curious, like, why, what are the criteria for us to become a New York Times bestseller? Because it seems like every single person and their mother besides Lala Kent has one.
Besides, I was going to say, besides Lala.
Yeah. But it's like, what is the requirement? I don't remember Claudia Oshry when she dropped Girl with No Job, Crazy Beautiful Life of an Instagram Thirst Monster. I think there might have been a dagger by her name, and she was saying, like, I swear to God, it wasn't. I didn't make fictitious sales or whatever. But I guess there's really is no way to audit that unless you have that dagger to just show
I don't
suspicious
know, but
purchase.
yeah, dagger is really embarrassing, in my opinion.
Really, really embarrassing.
Like you might be a New York Times bestselling author, which I will never be, but you have a
Yet.
dagger. Yet. So today she has her clothing line. She's also in the hair care space. She's one of the early investors of Well Bell, which is a hair supplement. And one of the controversies around Well Bell and Danielle, and not even the fact that she doesn't disclose the fact that she is an investor when she advertises it on her Instagram. It's the fact that she may or may not have extensions. And this has been like such a hotly debated topic around Danielle Bernstein is whether or not she has extensions. Her hair has had such a freaking glow up. Like she went from having like fried, she used to like bleach her hair, I think. Now her hair is so long and luxurious and shiny and thick and gorgeous. And she has denied having extensions. A lot of people have sworn that, their cousin's best friend's sister or whatever it is her hairstylist who says that she 1000% has extensions. Like, we will never know, probably, but it's an you know, interesting little lore about her.
It reminds me of when people, because I think at the end of the day, everyone in Hollywood and every influencer does have fake hair. And it's whether or not you as a consumer are smart enough to be able to differentiate that whatever you are
Yeah.
purchasing, it's more likely than not that that influencer does not use that said product.
Yeah.
So when I think of Hailey Bieber's Road, I don't think she's using those products. I think she gets a shit ton of lasers and she probably naturally has really great skin, but she's
You
probably
don't
not
think
using those
she
products.
uses her glazing milk?
Dark.
Wait, there was something else. There was like another, you know how I hate you guys if you listen to this dark energy episode a couple of weeks ago where I talk about how I fucking hate the term glazing milk. There was something else, one of her other products that had a disgusting name that I was reading about the other day.
Barrier
It,
butter.
yeah, barrier butter. Ugh, ugh, ugh. It's disgusting.
It's all, you know what it kind of reminds me of? Oh my God. It's equating skincare or things to put on your
With
body
like the dairy aisle.
or to food. I think of,
Yeah.
remember Jessica Simpson's dessert line?
Okay, but that ate.
That
No pun
it,
intended.
we can literally do an entire episode on Jessica Simpson's dessert line.
That
Okay.
ate like I'm sorry, barrier butter, like fuck off with that. Um
It's gross.
she also has veered into, it's clothes, it's shoes, it's accessories, handbags. Like the We Were What line has everything now, and she drops like a new line every day. Olivia's like, she now has a line of wedding dresses slash wedding attire. Imagine wearing a We Were What wedding dress, LMAO.
I I don't think I've ever purchased a single thing from We Were What. I can confidently say that. Have you?
No, I haven't. I feel like also I've been on like Shopbop. Like some of my favorite websites, I'll see like We Were What. I'm like before
Ugh.
I see We Were What, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute for the price. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's We Were What. It's gonna fall apart in 2 seconds. And I also just like morally can't justify like getting it. And I know that
No.
like if I got caught wearing We Were What by one of my followers, I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be able to live it down.
We'd be ending the show.
Yeah, the show would have to like go on a hiatus.
No. Yeah.
She also launched a perfume line a couple months ago.
Okay. 2007.
Yeah. So, so like we said at the top of the show, something that Danielle is very, very, very widely known for on the internet is copying major brands. So in 2018, Danielle launched or announced the launch of a jewelry collab with Nordstrom, and Nordstrom posts on Instagram about it, and immediately people were raising, red flags about the fact that it seemed very, very, the designs were extremely similar to Found Ray. If you've heard of Found Ray, it has a very recognizable look to it. And not only was it like, okay, these are very similar designs, Found Ray claimed that Danielle visited their studio. And this has happened in many of these situations where she's been accused of copying, is that the designer will come out and be
Yes.
like, we literally just had her at our studio, or we literally just gifted her items after she
Yes.
DM'd us. So it's not even just that it's a coincidence, it's the fact that like, oh my God, like the brands are like, we were just corresponding with her and she has the audacity to copy us.
It's the
So
shamelessness of her
yeah,
behavior because oftentimes, like you said, she will reach out to brands to get a
yes.
sample of whatever it is they're hawking. Then she will go and block that creator, and we'll get into it. She'll go ahead and block that creator
Yes.
and then sell that same exact goddamn product on her site. It's so nefarious and
It's
disgusting and
very
shameless.
nefarious, very shameless. So yeah, Foundry posted a photo of DB of Danielle with the jewelry saying, "This is not Foundry. This is a costume line." Ooh, costume line, not the costume line dig. This is a costume line that Danielle Bernstein of We Were What made for Nordstrom. All complete copies. Tonight, I feel crushed. Danielle came to my house over a year ago, came to her house to see our jewelry, and we let her borrow pieces several times. How is it not personal when you let a person into your home, let them wear your pieces, and then she knocks it off? It's an abuse of privilege, taking advantage of access. The buyers at Nordstrom also have a responsibility to protect design integrity, and their PR team is creating consumer confusion by endorsing her as the designer, which is not the truth. Honestly, I want to turn the other cheek, but I need to call out when wrong is wrong. And Danielle eventually apologized. But you'll see, and again, many such cases that we'll go over, that the designers are like genuinely crushed.
Yeah.
Like they are crushed. It's not even just like a professional slight, it's like a personal slight to them because this is their, this is their baby and they're just it's so personal for them, and it really like makes me sad every time I actually read the accounts of these designers that are small businesses and don't have the platform that Danielle has.
I think if
Um,
someone had come to us wanting to start a podcast and we walk them through like how we do our marketing, like how we like, and we let them in and then all of a sudden they block us on Instagram, block us on TikTok, and they basically steal all of our ideas and say that they want to do a Reddit podcast like Snark thing. That would infuriate me. I would be so upset and I would feel so violated almost because it's like I
yeah,
let you into my space. I helped you. I acknowledge like you were still coming up. I mean, we still are coming up, but you know what I mean? It's a different level of copying and stealing that just feels so personal to
yeah,
so many of these people. And it's not just one, it's not just two, it's so many. You can line them all up. It's rows of people that have experienced the same exact thing from her. It's disgusting.
yes, it is. Do you remember the Fashion Without Trash in drama that happened with her?
Is this the Goodwill?
Yes.
Oh my God. Yes. Let's get into
So
it.
Jade of Fashion Without Trashin was a Poshmark seller who would get things from Goodwill and then take them and photograph them, style them, whatever, and then sell them on Poshmark. And that's like a business model, I guess. It's kind of pretty smart in my opinion. Because go having to sift through like stuff at vintage stores or Goodwill is hard. Like
Oh
finding
yeah.
like the diamond in the rough or whatever, needle in a haystack, whatever you want to call it, is hard work. So when someone has a business of finding the good vintage stuff or finding the good stuff at Goodwill and then selling it, I appreciate them. Anyway, Jade, of Fashion Without Trashin is her handle. She unknowingly acquired unreleased samples from We Were What Onya collab swimwear line at Goodwill, and they were mistakenly donated to Goodwill, even though they were unreleased samples. Danielle discovered the items for sale online and immediately contacted Jade and said, "Take this down." Um, she said, someone from her team mistakenly donated the items to Goodwill. She offered to purchase them all back from her. And they started arguing about whether she would reimburse the costs of the swimwear paid to Goodwill or pay the seller's listed resale price because Jade put in a lot of work to photograph them and put them on Poshmark. Um, you know, she says, I purchase the items and then I give employees money to model, edit, list items, etc. It's a whole business. And they coordinated payment. Danielle goes, "Yes, that's fine." And then she backtracked and said that she would only pay the amount that Jade purchased them for. And
Which coming from Danielle Bernstein, like from her POV, it's like this is actually nothing to you. This creator, who's a small creator who literally makes a living on salvaging used items, racking through all these clothing racks at Goodwill. This is so much time. And yeah, to your point, this is a business model for her. She pays the model, she pays the photographer, she has to list it on the site. When I list one thing on Poshmark, I'm like, I'm done for the day. That was so much fucking work. It's
oh
so
my
much
God.
work.
Oh my
Okay.
God. I know.
And for her to just say, I refuse to purchase whatever you're pushing on your Poshmark site at resale value, the least you could do is pay a 300% premium. Like you're rich enough to do it. Come on.
I know.
Come on. And
Yeah,
it's
it's
also
ridiculous.
your team's fault, Danielle, that they put it in
Exactly.
goodwill. It's
It's
not her
your
fault.
team's fault. It's not
Yeah.
Jade's fault. So Danielle ends up running to the CEO of Poshmark and asks them to pull down Jade's entire Poshmark account, her business, basically. Um, and then Danielle's team actually threatens legal action as well. And, Jade fires back and she's like, I have no legal obligation to you. Like, I found these at Goodwill legally. And she ends up blowing it up on Instagram as she should. People are pissed. There's a change.org petition saying that, Danielle Bernstein should not be allowed to bully small businesses on Poshmark. Eventually, they meet in person, Jade and Danielle, and come to an agreement about it. And, Danielle posts on Instagram they had a heart to heart and came up with a fair resolution. Jade, for her part, said that it was like really just, she felt really intimidated. She said that Danielle was complaining about death threats. Um, and yeah, eventually they're like, okay, whatever, we made up. In July 2020, Danielle, similarly to the found Ray of it all, requested samples from a brand called Second Wind, and they were masks that had like a little chain around them. And so she'd previously requested samples, then launches identical masks. And she even sent the brand a message. And if this isn't an admission of guilt, I don't know what is. She goes, babe, babe, I thought I should let you know I'm also making masks with a detachable chain, similar to the sunglasses chains I own. I didn't want you to think I'm copying you. So,
And this
like,
is after she had already
yeah,
received the samples from the Second Wind creator.
yeah, yes. And she has to be like, I actually got the inspiration from this and not you, even though, like, you would definitely think I got it from you because they're the exact same design and I had requested samples from you. So, it's essentially an admission of guilt. Obviously, this blows up. There's a lot of backlash. Oh, Diet Prada. Diet Prada is like an op of Danielle Bernstein. I'm not a Diet Prada fan because I feel like that account is problematic in a lot of ways. But I will say that their beef with Danielle Bernstein is like my favorite thing. Um, so she eventually addresses it, Danielle does, and says, I wanted to address what's going on. I went into production on Mass a few weeks before I was introduced to Buy Second Win and her beautiful designs through a mutual friend. I was really excited to support her small business. But in the spirit of transparency, just wanted to let her know that I had already gone into production on linen masks with chains based off leftover fabric from an overall run that we did. It's like the over explaining makes her look so much guiltier. Blah, 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 blah. Makes a bunch of excuses. Also in July 2020, this is only days after the mass debacle.
Yeah.
She posts a photo of herself wearing quote unquote vintage gym shorts. And she says that she'd be remaking the shorts to sell. And this is something that she always freaking does, you guys. She always says she's remaking something for her, like for her fans, for her followers when she's wearing something vintage. It's like, can you come up with one original thought? And it turns out the shorts weren't vintage. They were from an Etsy shop by an Australian brand called Art Garments. The Etsy seller posted a receipt showing Danielle had purchased the shorts. Proof. And Danielle had then edited her Instagram caption to read correction. These are from Etsy. And I totally thought they were vintage, but they are made to order. Someone on my team ordered them for me a while back. I will not be making them. So, someone on her team, it's always someone else's fault.
Yeah, that's not a good leader. You have to take accountability for even if your
Yeah,
team fucks up, that's your fuck up. You have to own that as a leader.
exactly.
Idiot.
In August 2020, the Great Eros is another brand that she copies. She does
Oh.
not stop. 2020 was a big year for her. So the Great Eros had a design of like abstract, like nude female forms. That's kind of like their thing. And she copies this design and uses it for swimsuits, wallpaper, etc. And the Great Arrows called her out and said she was committing copyright infringement, engaging in unfair competition. Danielle then files a counter lawsuit and says, this isn't the same thing. Like they don't have, no one, including the defendant, owns the concept of silhouettes of the human form, the filing reads. And eventually it comes out that they leave out of the counter lawsuit the fact that Danielle Bernstein has visited the Great Arrows' showroom prior to producing the alleged infringing product and even inquired about obtaining plaintiff's products in exchange for promoting the brand. So again, there's proof of her trying to obtain the product and reaching out to the brand before copying them. Oh my God. It's
It
like
it
she is
it
just something else.
and again, it goes back to our earlier point of she goes and visits these small businesses, and they are so excited that this person with huge, intense following is coming to their showroom and making an appearance. Not only does she take advantage of their goodwill of inviting her into their space, but then she then copies it. It's it just it sends a chill down my spine. It gives me the willies.
I know. It's just like unbelievable. So again, in 2020, this is November 2020, she's accused of copying a brand called Grayscale's skirt design. And this is a black owned brand. And it's also 2020. So the optics are, as you can imagine, not great for Danielle. And she had previously worn this exact skirt. She wore it, posted herself in it, and then copied it. Um, and this was actually for her Macy's collection. And they actually, after this all happened, Macy's said there are no future collaborations planned with Danielle Bernstein after these allegations. So
She's a
they were like, "We're
liability.
we're done with this shit. Yeah, we're done with her." Um Also in 2020, she's accused of copying activewear brand Live the Process. They got messages from Danielle praising their designs and samples. She asked them to send me all the cozies, which I hate.
Ew.
um, and in January 2021, former employees of Onya came out, and this in a story for Business Insider said that Danielle would literally bring copies of like a Dolce& and Gabbana fabric or Dolce& and Gabbana swimsuit and say, make this. Like they literally, the designers at Onya would be like, well, we need to change it somehow. Like, let's kind of like make it our own. And she would say, no, I want it like this. I want it to be an exact replica of Dolce& and Gabbana. Oh my God. She just does not stop. And, she obviously denies these claims. And there's also a brand called We Are Kin, another black owned business that she is accused of copying after wearing a dress sent to her by the brand. Of course, she denies that once again. Do you also remember like the Kelsey Coates drama with her?
Yes. Yes, yes. Is this the girl I was on TikTok and she has, is it like the green stripes on the
Yeah,
white?
it was like a
Yeah.
top. It was the way that she styled the top was really unique. And Kelsey Kotzer, I think. She's now an influencer herself, and she kind of got her platform from this drama. She was like, Danielle Bernstein is copying small creators and copying the way they're styling things. And so it doesn't just stop at brands, like it's also like small creators. And luckily, Kelsey was able to catapult, this drama into making a name for herself.
Turn lemons into lemonade, if so
Yeah.
you will. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess so. Um, So in terms of like outside of being the most unoriginal person alive, she is criticized also in 2020 for spreading COVID in the Hamptons, basically. She's like
Ariel
constantly
Charnas?
she's con
Anyone?
yeah, similarly to Ariel Charnas, except Ariel Charnas was like married with kids at the time. Danielle is just running around like partying in the Hamptons without a mask, always like traveling, always running around and partying. This is allegedly when her friendship with SFK fell out. From what I have heard, is that Serena Kerrigan and Danielle at this time were really good friends. And I guess there was like some drama with like they did a share house in the Hamptons. Also, both got COVID and were spreading it around allegedly. But I guess there was drama with like Danielle booking the Hamptons house and then after the fact, like Venmo charging Serena like an absurd amount for the Hamptons house. I don't exactly know, but that's why allegedly they were really good friends for a while and then fell out after the summer of 2020.
But I
Um,
will say quickly about SFK, and I know this is not an SFK episode, but I do have it on very good authority, and I have seen the screenshots. SFK, she is so thirsty that it comes as no surprise that she was latching herself onto Danielle Bernstein at this time in her life.
yeah.
She loves to DM people who are of the moment. So if she sees a
Yeah.
creator that's blowing up, she will send someone a message, a DM saying, "Hey, girlie, let's be friends." And I think you were in this group chat with
We
me
said
as well.
this. Yeah, we said this on our SFK episode. Yes, this happened. This also happened to me, even though I'm like not even relevant, like wasn't even really blowing up. I just started to gain somewhat of a following. And
Yes.
because I had previously worked with her,
Right.
even
Yes,
though
yes, yes.
I was invisible to her when I worked with her, but suddenly I was someone that she wanted to know because I started to gain somewhat of a following. So yeah, SFK latches onto anyone with a following, and at this time it was Danielle Bernstein, and I think also the fact that Danielle Bernstein started to become persona non grata because she kept getting called out for copying and kept
Yes.
getting canceled again and again. And canceled is, I'm using that term loosely because she still has a thriving career and a thriving business, but you know, relatively speaking, was becoming persona non grata. And then Serena Kerrigan started to distance herself from her for whatever reasons. But another one of like the biggest criticisms of Danielle is obviously her photoshopping. It's egregious and it has been egregious for some time. And it's like it's so complicated. And we talk about this. We've talked about this on several of our episodes that
Mhm.
like we do live in a patriarchy and there is like this, just societal pressure to be thin and be beautiful and be the male ideal, whatever it is. And social media just perpetuates that. And I think there's a difference between like touching up your face, like using the blur feature if you have a greasy forehead, which I have done many times.
I'm the queen of a greasy
Whiten
forehead.
your tooth. Yeah, like
Yeah,
my forehead is always greasy. I'm always using that
same.
tool. Whitening your teeth a little bit. I have yellow teeth. Always going to use that tool. But like she was making herself from a size 4, size 6, which gorgeous body naturally. If you look her up on Getty Images and see the non-photoshopped photos of herself, it is a different person.
Oh,
It
yes.
is a completely different body type. Her natural body, her just normal everyday Getty Images body is banging. She has an incredible figure. Size 4, size 6, whatever she is, it doesn't matter. She photoshops herself to be a size 00.
Yeah. And I remember there was this one photo that she posted, and she goes, I know that you guys are all wondering about that picture that's making its way around the internet. And I want to clarify that that is not what I look like. This is what I look like. And it was a picture of her. She was at a resort, and someone had snapped a photo of her, and she purposely picked up quote unquote paparazzi, but it wasn't paparazzi. It was like a fan taking a photo, and she looks thin, right? And she goes, this is not what I look like. They made me look so ugly and my
Yeah.
body looks so big. And this is actually what I look like. And if you look at the two photos, they both look like very thin and just yeah, they both looked thin. It was like clearly she was targeting her audience to say, I know you guys think this is what I look like, which is so big when it was not at
I
all.
have a
This
theory
is what I
that
look like.
I have a theory that when that happened, so when she got photographed by a fan and like freaked out that that photo was being posted online because she
Yeah.
wasn't able to edit it, I think that's when her and her ex-boyfriend broke up. So basically something that we haven't touched on is the fact that she has had like these very like public relationships. Um And she talks about them in her book. The reason that she decided to write her book was because she was having all of these sexcapades with like all of these
Ugh.
hot male models. And she was like, I'm in my Samantha Jones era. Like, I am just pulling all of these tens and like I need to tell everyone about it. So that is why she decided to write her book in her own words. Um, but she has a long-term relationship for a while with this guy named Aaron Baum. And that was from it must have been like I'm gonna get the years wrong. Like I want to say like 2014 through like 2017. And in her book says that she was not in love with him. Like he loved her more than she loved him. She loved him but wasn't in love with him. And he was just kind of like too obsessed with her. So then she starts dating this guy, Anthony Adler, who apparently comes from like a high society family. And that was her most recent boyfriend before her current boyfriend.
Yeah.
And so Anthony Adler, I think like he just always seemed like he hated her. They dated for 4 years and
Yeah.
she would always kind of be hinting at like, you know, wanting a ring.
Engagement.
Like she
Yeah.
would be talking about like wanting to become a young mom and like she would wear white to their trips to St. Bart's and all of that. And I think that when that happened, that was like his breaking point because shortly after that they broke up. And I obviously we don't know what happened or like who broke
Mhm.
up with who, but like he seemed like he hated her. So her current boyfriend is this guy Cooper Weissman who is funny because his sister is Nikki Weissman, now Nikki Selden, who she was Ariel Charnas's like early employee, like one of her first like
Mhm.
assistants, one of her first employees. So
Okay.
even though she's private now, her Instagram is private. She's not a public figure. I feel like that's just like a very known thing if you follow these people. So that is his sister, which I think is interesting. That like this girl, Nikki, she just like can't escape these like problematic influencers. Like,
Yeah. Who's worse, would you say? Ariel Charnas or Danielle Bernstein?
they're both bad in their own ways. Like
Yeah.
they're just like they're so different, but also really similar in how problematic they are. But I would say that Danielle Bernstein has more scandals.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Ariel Charnas has a couple scandals that we covered in our episode about her, but Danielle's scandals do not end. Um, but another another thing that is important to note about her photoshopping is that she loves photoshopping like an ab line, like the Emrata one. Like it like in photos of her wearing a bathing suit, she has Emrata's stomach. Like it is concave, it is so ripped. And then when you see videos of her, you're like, where's her ab line? But she's just like extremely toxic, I would say
Yes.
in general about her body. In her book, she talks about avoiding carbohydrates before wearing a swimsuit. She references working her Pilates toned ass off at internships. She has to say Pilates toned ass in her book. It's like so insufferable.
Ugh.
And yeah, it's so funny. And she is constantly posting about like debloating pills, lymphatic drainage. It's kind of similar to like the SFK of it all. At least Danielle Bernstein, in her defense, as I'm ripping her apart, in her defense, she does not like pretend to be this like body positive queen of confidence like SFK does, but she is just as equally obsessed with like those treatments that like are the kind of treatments that are made to make women feel insecure. Like I have not once, and again, like this is we've talked about this before. Like I am not someone who had to grow up in a larger body. I have always been kind of naturally like petite. I'm just petite. It's my body type. So I know
Mhm.
I can't fully relate, but like I have never once been like, I cannot eat carbs before being in a bathing suit. I cannot
No.
go a day without my de-bloating pills. Like de-bloating pills, like I don't know. I feel like all of the pseudoscience, like junk science, Kardashian the
Mhm.
Kardashian shit that they were like
Of
shilling in
course.
2016.
The
It
weight
is literally,
trainers. Yeah.
yeah, it's literally the appetite suppressant like lollipops.
Yes.
It is just to make women feel more insecure about
100,
themselves. Like
100%.
there is no actual like, and you can argue about lymphatic drainage. I feel like we did get some feedback after our SFK episode about how some of this stuff actually helps people like lymphatic drainage or whatever it is. Like I don't know enough about these treatments, but from what I've seen on Instagram, it's always these influencers that are saying they're getting this lymphatic drainage treatment before their photo shoot, before they have to be in a bathing suit, instead of just like being in a bathing suit. Like just like be yourself in a bathing suit. You're gorgeous. You have a great body. Like it just does not like I don't know. I just think it's so
Yeah.
toxic. Like she clearly has a
Yeah.
very toxic relationship with her own body and hates her body and that's why and she's admitted to photoshopping herself in the past and says, I'm trying to stop because she's been called out for it so much, but she has not stopped.
Yeah, and I think if you put yourself in the situations of these women like her and SFK, imagine how exhausting that type of lifestyle is. Because not only are you so hyper focused on your body and on food and what you're going to eat and what you don't want to eat before you get into a bikini, but it's also like you also are presenting this very exhausting lifestyle that is so clearly doctored to an objective viewer like you and I. Like you don't have to be super smart to understand that what you're putting out there in the universe, what you're
Hmm.
putting on your photos is so doctored and fake. And it's
Yep.
like they, to an extent, have to have a little bit of self-awareness to know that we know that it's fake and just embrace it. Like, I don't know. I actually feel more sad for women like her and women like SFK who present something that must be just so exhausting to maintain.
Yeah.
Just we
It's
wouldn't less you any we wouldn't like you or dislike you any less if you had showed your normal body, believe it or not.
totally. I also think that I would like her more.
Yeah,
Like
likewise.
yeah, I would like definitely like her more if she was like, "Hey, I'm not I'm not a sample size and that's okay." And I still like have, these really cool outfits and like whatever. I rock it. And again, she has an amazing body on Getty Images. I
Yes.
don't it's insane how much she photoshops herself to be like a size 00. Um
It's
she
almost
also
insulting
it
to me
is.
as her follower. It's like, do you really think we're that stupid to where you think that we believe that is your true body type? It's insulting. Like it insults my intelligence. I'm sorry.
She also makes herself like she sets the size of an extra small of her brand to be her sizing. And so when people have noticed that when they order her clothing,
Right.
it's really hard to track with their sizes because it's all based on Danielle Bernstein being the size 0, the size XS. Um, Olivia, our researcher, actually said that she got something of hers. She ordered something. We were what? She ordered something from Miss What, and she
Miss
says she
what?
had to buy it 3 sizes smaller. She says, I've never worn a size 23 jean in my life. So it's also like affecting her business
Oh,
that
interesting.
she has such a toxic relationship with her. And she also is the first person to be like, I sized up to a medium for an oversized fit. Like she has to qualify every time she's a size medium, or even like I sized up to a size small for an oversized fit. It's like, okay, shut up. Um,
God, she's so insufferable. I hate her.
I
I
know.
literally hate her.
I know. Another thing that she does that is so fucking insufferable is that every time she does something good, so she has a charity called We Gave What. And again, credit where it's due. I am not afraid to compliment influencers as much as we criticize them. I think it's really great that she gives back to the community, but every time she does something nice or volunteers or anything she does, she has to post about it. And she even one time posted from a DV shelter that she was volunteering at
Oh
and
God.
posted the faces of the women at the DV shelter.
What?
Yeah, is that insane?
Oh my God, that's
Um,
like totally again. It's like AA. You have to, it's anonymous. You can't just post that.
It's
Oh my God,
almost
she's
like
an idiot.
I will say that something that I found really endearing about her over the years is how shameless and how much she
Yeah.
lacks self-awareness. Like it's
Yes.
almost endearing. Like she is so embarrassing and so cringy and like does not care. Like even like with posting about her boyfriend. Like
Yeah.
again, like I bring up the boyfriend thing because it's so funny how she posts about her boyfriends every single time. She does like drool emojis. She'll like be like, "Oh my God, hottie," with like drool emojis, like and like post like videos of them like making out with tongue. Like
Yeah, I've seen those.
she'll drunkenly post a video of themselves of her and her boyfriend making out, and then like the next day probably be like, like sometimes she does have the realization that she's being cringy and embarrassing, but like 9 times out of 10, she does not realize how embarrassing she is. And it's like almost endearing to me. Like I don't know why. Like it's I think maybe because I am so like conscious of what I put on the internet. And like I said, like we'll get a stomach ache if I'm like, oh, I have to post on Instagram. It's
No,
like to be that shameless. I don't know. There's something so just unique. So
yeah.
unique about her.
And I think the one thing I will say, and the one thing I pride myself on, is I am so self-aware that it pains me. Like when I know I've made a mistake or when I know I'm clearly being disingenuous, I feel it, and I know that people around me can feel it. Like it's like it's a good thing that I pride myself on. And I think that people that I surround myself with too are self-aware. Like this just tells me her shamelessness and lack of self-awareness will be the reason why I would never befriend her. Not that she's wanting to be my friend or anything. She could care fucking less. But people like this, when they lack self-awareness, I cannot be around you. It's just you live in your own planet that is not grounded in
Yeah.
reality. I
Yep.
just can't. I can't do it. People like that.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry.
Do you remember when she launched her credit card? Like semi recently.
She's always trying out new business ventures here
Yeah,
and
there
there.
it's always something. There was Mo Assist, which was
Yeah,
her
Mo.
app to help influencers named after
Yeah.
her assistant Mo or her like
Wait.
longtime employee Mo. Don't think it exists anymore. This credit card thing, like I she launched it, I think like last year and I have not heard anything about it since. But it was a credit card that offers rewards for shopping at WeWereWhat.com and other
Oof.
brands. It was launched in partnership with Imprint, a rewards platform that helps brands create their own branded cards. I don't know, it's so silly. Like, please, you guys do not destroy your credit score with a We Were What credit card.
Please
Please.
invest it in Chase Sapphire Reserve. Please, I
It's
beg of you.
giving, it's giving Billy McFarland.
Yes, his credit card. I forgot about that.
So, um, another another recent kind of controversy that has happened with Danielle is late last year she announced that her one of her French bulldogs, she had two French bulldogs. One of her French bulldogs had a terminal brain tumor and was quickly dying, and she immediately jet off to Greece with her boyfriend. And I sort of understand, like, you put a lot of money down for a trip that you planned in advance. Like, there's only so much you can do. And
Yeah.
I remember I was really upset about this because I'm a dog mom, I'm a dog person. Like just the idea of leaving like a dying animal in his final weeks. It turned out it was his final weeks.
No, I can't.
I know, like I'm gonna cry. Um, you guys, Jordan, our producer, goes, I DM'd her about it.
She goes, I was devastated.
And like, yeah, people I think were really triggered by this and really upset, as was I. Um, why even post about it? Like you're obviously like exposing yourself because you're going to post about it and then you jet off to Greece with your boyfriend 2 seconds later and you're leaving your dog in his final weeks. And again, it's like I get it. I understand that, you have this trip that you already paid for and you planned and you've been looking forward to. Like, I get that. Then don't share the fact that your dog is dying because you look bad.
It goes
Like,
back to the self-awareness though. She doesn't even
yes,
understand or can compute that the optics of that is really poor.
exactly. Exactly. It's like she just completely lacks the chip that most people have. That's like, you don't need to post this?
Can you imagine how freeing that must be though? Like coming from you
Yeah.
and I both that are severe overthinkers, we have a lot of anxiety, we're medicated because we are
Yeah.
so anxious. Can you imagine living a life where you are so unaware of everyone else around you and the way that you are perceived that you just do whatever feels right to you in that moment?
It must
Imagine.
be incredibly freeing.
I'm
Incredibly
still
freeing.
I'm still literally having anxiety about a conversation I had this morning with a coworker. Like, fuck, did I overstep? Like, I'm still thinking about it. Can you
Yeah.
imagine just having that conversation and forgetting about it that instant?
Like, to be Danielle Bernstein for a day and just her brain needs to be studied. Um,
Well,
it
I
just
want to
seems
touch on something
so, it seems so just relaxing.
very relaxing, very freeing. Olivia put in our show notes the podcast that she had started back in 2018 called We Heard What. And from what we can tell, it only
Yes.
lasted 25 episodes. And interestingly enough, I have a little bit of lore. So I have a girlfriend. She's like a pretty big influencer, has a pretty big podcast. And I won't like, call her out by name because I don't want to dox her or whatever, but she interviewed Danielle Bernstein on one of her podcast episodes. And Danielle Bernstein's team is the one that reached out to her and said, "Hey, we want to have her on your show. Would you be open to that?" My friend said, "Yes, whatever." She said Danielle Bernstein was the worst, most disrespectful, impolite person she's ever interacted with. And she said that it was so weird because typically when you do podcasts, like for those of you who, I mean, podcasting, usually when you have someone on your show, it's kind of podcast etiquette to where you return the favor because it's kind of like swap for swap because I want to get your audience, you get my audience. It's very common in the space. But when Danielle Bernstein had reached out to my friend and my friend had her on her show and she has a huge following and signed with a very big network, Danielle Bernstein didn't return the favor, which my friend thought was very weird as well. So it's just, again, it shows, it goes back to that lack of self-awareness.
Yeah. And it's similar to like, with the brand stuff. Like, do me a favor, send me your stuff. Like, send me your stuff, do me a favor. And then, like, not even just not upholding your end of the bargain, but just like fucking them over and being a terrible person to them.
Just being, yeah, being rude. And I think she showed up late or she ended up leaving early. Like it was just a very poor experience. So she doesn't have,
Does
I
not
think,
surprise me one
all,
bit.
all that to say, she doesn't have a fabulous reputation in the space.
No, she does not. She does not. She does not have a fabulous reputation in any space, honestly. Um, but yeah, I know that there probably is more stuff that we could have included. There's a lot. There's a lot of lore, but I feel like this is like the top line, like most important things to mention about DB. Um, there are just so many things when it comes to her. I
And I,
just I can't.
and I think it's really, it's she has so much lore and so many scandals to your point that really if you just Google her name or TikTok her name, the first thing that will come up is her controversies around
hmm
stealing from other creators or using their material for her own to sell. And it's typically like Black, Indigenous, people of colors content
Yeah.
more often than not. And I think,
Yeah.
why do you think she's been able to withstand all this negative press? Like, what about her has had, like, why has she been able to
I
keep
think it's
longevity?
because she keeps posting. She doesn't let
Mhm.
herself be canceled, and she has so many scandals that like they become it's almost like Trump. Like there's just
Mhm.
so much that it's just like I can't even remember like why we hate you. Like
Yes.
it's also kind of like the Caroline Calloway just what's the word strategy where it's like
Hmm.
just have so many scandals that like no one will remember why they're mad at you. Like it's just I don't know. That's how I see it is that there's just so much and so many times she's pissed people off, but nevertheless, she persisted. She just
Yeah.
continues to post and like continues to just nothing bothers her. Which again, it's like I almost admire that about her that she just lacks shame, she lacks self-awareness, she lacks situational awareness. Um, it's almost admirable in a way.
Yeah, I think that her career has been very interesting because, again, I really haven't heard of Emily Schumann. I don't think she was ever really able to break away from the confines of blogging in the traditional website over to Instagram and to TikTok. I don't know if others feel differently if you've been following her
I
for
unfollowed
longer.
her. I followed her for so long and I unfollowed her a couple of years ago because I
Me
was like
too.
bored.
Me too. And I think that she hasn't been able to sustain that same trajectory. Whereas Danielle Bernstein, I think the way that she's been able to sustain it is because she's been able to pivot in these different platforms. Because she's on
Totally.
TikTok, she's on Instagram, despite her failed business ventures like she had an app that Mo Assist, like you mentioned, the credit
Mhm.
card, things like that. She has these business ventures that will fail, but she's been able to sustain longevity on these other platforms, which I guess if you're able to keep up with the youngins, with the Gen Zs, and you're able to like attach yourself to other
Yeah.
platforms, maybe that's the differentiator that say Emily Schumann didn't have.
Yes. And I think that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That's an important point about her is that even though she's like one of the OG influencers, she also like, and I don't mean this as like a slight against her, that she hasn't become like a mom or a wife yet. she doesn't need to, but she is still in that like going out, going to revolve
Yes.
around the world or like whatever, like influencer events, influencer parties. Whereas, Emily Schumann, Ariel Charnas have kind of like evolved. Like they're like married with kids. Like they're kind
Yeah.
of just like boring now. Like she is still keeping up with the youngins. She's keeping up with the newer influencers and the newer
Yeah.
TikTokers. She is like attaching herself to them, which I think is really smart.
Who are her friends, by the way? Who does she go about town with? Because she's in New York
I
City,
know
right?
that so I don't fully know, but I know that the influencer Jordan Sloan, who I follow because she does like beauty and makeup and I like her beauty and makeup tips. She was just recently hanging out with Jordan Sloan, which I guess because Jordan Sloan just moved here. So she'll like be with some of those like New York influencers. I know that like she had like a Galentine's thing and like SFK, like her and Serena Kerrigan are back on.
Interesting.
So I think that she has like she's always in St. Bart's. Like
Sure.
no one is in St. Bart's more than Danielle Bernstein. But she's always
Random.
in St. Bart's with like random people. Like I don't even know. But again, like I feel like I'll hand it to her. Like she has been smart about her career and like she has this longevity for a reason. So even though she's had these scandals and she has people like us like making fun of her and bitching about her, like she has found success and like props to her.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. What do you think is her it factor or her ability to sustain like her fame amongst everyone else, like Emily Schumann's and Gal Meets Glam or whatever? I'm so curious because I feel like a lot of people that are on Reddit, like you and I, were those people that followed Cupcakes and Cashmere back in the day. Like, what
Mhm.
sets Danielle Bernstein apart? And I think you hit it on the head, Sophie. Like, she just has so many scandals that it's become another day. It's like, God, this is
Yeah.
like such a horrible analogy, but I equate it to like shootings these days in the US. It's like another shooting. All right, well, add it to the list.
You're just
You
like numb to it.
you're numb to it. So you're almost
Yeah.
numb to Danielle Bernstein's scandals
Yes.
because there's far too many.
What an analogy.
And I'm like, not saying she's as severe as a school shooting, but you know
Um,
what I mean.
um, but yeah, and also let us know, you guys, if there's anything that we didn't include, because again, there's a lot. So if there's anything we didn't include, please let us know. And we're always open to circling back to some of these influencers that we cover and talking about them in future episodes. So if there's something you want us to circle back to, please do let us know. Please do follow us on Instagram at SnarkBaitPod. We're trying to get our followers up. And we post really fun content over there. And leave us a 5-star review. Duh, always.
We do a
And
5-star roundup. So if you guys are
yeah,
like fun enough in your reviews, you could see it on our Instagram at SnarkBaitPod.
yeah, we would love to shout you out. And yeah, anything else, Christy?
No, I mean, you can follow me at XNazal. You can follow Sophie at Soph_Ross. We're available on YouTube at SnarkBaitPod. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can go ahead and leave us a comment and you'll see us responding to some of them.
Yeah,
We're
and you
available.
also can watch us now on Spotify, like we
Yeah.
said. So, hi.